Thank you very much for this introduction, Rosa. My name is Stephanie Marschler, and I will lead you through the first part of the presentation, which is about the feedback from patients and healthcare professionals to the surveys, how the recent shortages of amoxicillin, Ozempic, and Vesudine were communicated to them, and where they found relevant information. And then Inga will give an overview of the NCA, the National Competent Authority survey. So the surveys were sent out to our eligible healthcare professional organizations and eligible patient organizations, which are general or thematically close to the shortages of amoxicillin, Ozempic, and Vesudine, to cascade them down to their members. And we surveyed about these recent shortages as they are high profile, and most member states were affected by these shortages. The objective of these surveys was to assess how the healthcare professionals and patients were informed or informed themselves about the recent medicine shortages. As a side note, we started the surveys in March this year, and as we did not get many responses at first for the patient surveys, we promoted them also on social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, and extended the deadline multiple times and finally translated the patient surveys also into all official EU languages, which results I will come back to later. And for Vesudine, we also contacted individual patients that are registered in our stakeholders database who showed interest in eye diseases. So the response numbers for the healthcare professionals and patients was quite good for amoxicillin and Ozempic, with about 49 to 79 replies from 14 or 15 EU and EEA countries. And for Vesudine, the responses were lower, which may be because Vesudine is not used in all member states and also is not as frequently used as the other surveyed medicines. So for healthcare professionals, mostly pharmacists participated in the surveys, but also some medical doctors. Most of the participants came from Italy, Spain, Belgium, Austria, and Sweden. And for the patient surveys, mostly patients replied, but also some carers or patient representatives. And they came mostly from Lithuania, France, Spain, Germany, or Finland. So most of the participants stated that they were affected by the surveyed medicine shortage. And for the healthcare professionals, they first learned about the shortage, mostly when they did not receive the delivery from the wholesaler, which was the case 29 to 48%, or they learned from the media about the shortage, which was mostly stated for Ozempic, or also from DHPC's direct healthcare professional communications, or from healthcare professional organizations. Electronic prescribing systems or distribution systems were not or only sparsely mentioned here. And for patients, mostly they first learned about the shortages from their pharmacist, which was the case in about 50% for amoxicillin and Ozempic. And also media played an important role for them, where a significant amount of people learned about the shortages. The survey then asked the participants if they consulted any of these shown resources for information on the shortage. And for healthcare professionals on the left side, the results show clearly that the NCA website or the shortage catalog of the MCA was most used as a source for information on the shortages, followed by the DHPCs. This also shows that the EMA catalog is less often used. Most of the participants also stated that they did not know of its existence. And also the NCA catalog is more often used as it appears more tailored to the national circumstances. These results also show that media is not really a source of information for healthcare professionals, which they actively consult, but rather some healthcare professional or healthcare professional organizations. For patients, this shows that the pharmacist is the most important source of information on shortages for Ozempic and amoxicillin, followed by the doctor and media. But patients use media more often than shortage catalogs. And in general, most patients stated that they did not know of the existence of the EMA or the NCA shortage catalog. And yeah, for Vesudine, the situation is a bit different. Here, patients consulted the NCA catalogs, rather patient organizations and their doctor, rather than their pharmacist. And we also asked the second question where the participants found relevant information, and most of the participants stated the same as is shown here in these results. The survey then asked an open question regarding if the participant did not find the information that they needed, where to specify where or what information was missing where in which source. As responses, some participants replied that they were missing the duration of the shortage, details of supply levels, the reasons for shortages, and details on alternatives, and also up-to-date information. These points were raised more or less often by individuals and regarding the different medicine shortages and different sources of information. And now I will conclude with the experience that we gained from translating the surveys to patients into all official EU languages and what we can take away from that for future multilingual surveys. Firstly, the demand to translate the surveys was shown by some patient organizations and also during our social media campaign, where participants required the surveys to be translated. So the survey to patients was originally launched in March this year, and the deadlines were extended multiple times. The translations were made available from 16th of June, and the survey closed 15 days later on 30th June. But as you can see in the results, the outcome of the translations or the outcome of the feedback of that shows clearly that we got an increased response for amoxicillin. After the translations, we received 69% of responses, for Ozempic 81% of responses, and Visidyne 33%. And of all participants after the translation, 18%, 62%, or 33% respectively took the survey in another language than English. The second outcome was that we noticed an increased likelihood of comments for the open questions. So the comment ratio was better when the translations were in place. And lastly, an increased length of comments and also the understandability of the comments after the translation was likely. So probably as participants felt more comfortable to write longer texts or clarify things in their own native language was increased. For practical points, we used an automated process for the translation with little administrative burden. The translations were therefore not quality reviewed for accuracy of the translation. And for comments in another language, we used the translation tool to translate them into English for the analysis of them. So the conclusion here is that multilingual surveys add benefits in terms of response rate and comment ratio with not many practical burdens. So therefore, we can see translations being used in future surveys and that this will add benefit to the feedback received through surveys. So now I will give the floor to Inga, and I'm happy to answer any question after the presentation.
Thank you, Stephanie, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'll briefly take you through the feedback on the surveys to the national competent authorities before then concluding overall. So the survey was sent to the so-called single point of contact in the national competent authorities of all EU EEA member states. So these are the shortage specialists at the competent authorities. So we sent a question designed to assess how competent authorities communicated on, again, the shortages of Ozempic, amoxicillin, and Visidyne. So we had a fairly good response with 27 out of 30 authorities who responded. In terms of how member states were affected, so for amoxicillin and Ozempic, 93% of member states were affected, and slightly fewer, with 63%, were affected by the Visidyne shortage. And most affected member states also published then the shortage as an entry in their national shortage catalogue. and all three shortages were equally represented there. And the reason for not publishing was in a minority of member states who do not have a shortage catalogue. We also mapped the date of notification with the date of publication, and here we had some issues with getting a lot of the well, quite a few of the data. So we have only managed to map it in a minority for a minority of member states. So that you can see that to the date of notification and to date of publication is largely aligned. And there is a delay for 2 member states here. Again, I mean, the sample wasn't really representative because for a lot, we couldn't get all the data. We also asked then whether the agency has published a dedicated news item or press release in addition to the shortage catalog. And here in 40 to 50% roughly of the member states, a press release was used for amoxicillin and Ozempic. For fewer member states used a press release for Visidyne. Regarding the DHPC, we ask about the DHPC dissemination and publication, and here for 72% of member states, DHPC was sent out for amoxicillin, 52% for Ozempic, and 35% for Visidyne. We then also followed up and asked if the DHPC was published, and here for amoxicillin, for example, this occurred in 50% of the cases in member states where this is routine practice. An important question was also about the use of other communication tools in addition to the shortage catalog and press releases such as electronic prescribing systems or publication in professional or medical journals. And well, what we can see from the slide is that the use of other tools pretty much reflects the level of public attention there was for those shortages. So very high public attention for amoxicillin and Ozempic, and slightly less for Visidyne, which affected also a smaller population. And this was then reflected in the number of additional tools that were used. So now to conclude, we can see from the survey that shortage catalogs play a key role in the communication used by regulators. They are mostly used as a confirmatory source by healthcare professionals after they found out about the shortage through another mean. The use amongst patients is lower. The main source of information is their healthcare professional. And here it is important that healthcare professionals therefore know on time about shortage so that they can advise their patients. And so as a main outcome, we take from the survey that we need to promote awareness of the shortage catalogs further. And here we'd like to ask also the help from the Working Party for this. The survey highlighted that there is some information that is missing, such as information on duration of shortages and alternatives. So this was also highlighted in the workshop earlier this year, and we're aware of this request, but it is challenging because information on duration of shortages is often not available. If it is, it's never static, so it changes throughout the shortage. And similarly for the information on alternatives, this is also very variable from one member state to another, and even within a country, it can be very, very variable depending on local guidance and protocols. So it is quite challenging information to provide in a catalog. In addition, there was also the survey also highlighted the perception that that the information is not always up to date, and this is also something that needs to be addressed in future. The survey then also highlighted media as a source of information, which was highlighted in the patient and healthcare professional survey, but then also the survey to national competent authorities highlighted the risk of stockpiling, which could potentially be linked to media, one-sided media reports. So there was some questions, some open questions about challenges where this was highlighted. And again, this just complements what was already seen in the workshop earlier this year, and here there are currently initiatives ongoing to address the role of the media in reporting of shortages, and we plan to discuss this further within the task force working groups, and also consider updating existing guidance and reflecting further on potentially guidance for media. So maybe I'll stop here and see if there are any questions follow up. Thank you.